You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Censorship, I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, as extraordinary new footage reveals the Prime Minister's official spokeswoman joking about a potentially illegal Christmas party at number 10 Downing Street last year, how dare they even suggest they could cancel Christmas for us this year? My special digest coming up on today's shocking developments and why it's time for us to say ho, 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 hell no, no, no. Then my superstar panel weigh-in, author and journalist Rebecca Reid, Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson and Daily Star columnist Dawn Neeson. And GB News star Nigel Farage gives his first reaction to the breaking news at 9:30. Why aren't universities allowed to call out snowflake students who refuse to listen to opposing views? One of our favourite contributors, Rod Liddle, has been hitting the headlines this week after a walkout over his speech at Durham University. He'll reveal what really happened in an exclusive interview. Is Prince Harry right to encourage folk to quit their jobs if they're unhappy? I've got a fantastic clash coming up as the privileged prince's sister-in-law, Samantha Barkle, does battle with former Made in Chelsea star turned presenter and empowerment coach Ashley James. Social media sensation and voice of reason Zuby joins me in the studio with a message for COVID finger pointers. Stop demonising others for that positive test of yours. He's here and uncancelled at 10:40. Has the outrageous northern blackout exposed the government's levelling up pledge as a load of baloney? Darren Grimes sounds off in The Outsider. And after the tragic case of Arthur Lejimbo Hughes, should life mean life for child killers? And should Brits stop being made to feel guilty for our country's colonial past? I'll put those stories and more of today's top headlines to my panel in the Media Buzz. Plus, I'll bring you the first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages and crown tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. This is Dan Wootton Tonight. Let's go. But just one thing first, they are taking the piss out of us, folks. I've known it for over 18 months. I think most of you figured it out long ago, but perhaps now the rest of the country is going to wake up. This exclusive footage revealed by ITV News tonight shows the Prime Minister's then spokeswoman, Allegra Stratton, joking about a potentially illegal Christmas party that took place at number 10 Downing Street last year, just after that cancelled Christmas for millions of us. Watch this and feel the rage.
I've just seen reports on Twitter that there was a Downing Street Christmas party on Friday night. Do you recognise those reports?
I went home. Hold on.
Would the Prime Minister condone having a Christmas party?
What's the answer?
I don't know.
It wasn't a party, it was cheese and wine.
Just be clear, it's not.
Is cheese and wine all right?
No.
It was a business meeting.
I'm joking.
This is recorded. This fictional party was a business meeting. And it was not socially distanced. One more, and then ask anybody have any questions today?
A business meeting, ha ha ha. That, folks, is why we must never grant the government that level of control over our lives again. Ever. I mean that. They can't cancel Christmas again if we don't let them. I'll have a special digest on that in just a moment. Then I unleash my superstar panel. Here they are. Tonight, it's the former editor of the Daily Star. She's their current star columnist, though, Dawn Neeson. The Conservative commentator, Calvin Robertson. No one can cancel Christmas with a jumper like that. And the journalist and author, Rebecca Reid. But first, with the news at 9, it's Simon Pusey.
Hello, I'm Simon Pusey, and these are your latest headlines. A leaked recording of the Prime Minister's former spokesperson shows her laughing about a Downing Street Christmas party in December last year while the country was under lockdown restrictions. The exclusive video released by ITV News shows Allegra Stratton answering mock questions in the Number 10 press room 4 days after the alleged party. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer says it's shameful of the government to lie and to laugh about those lies, and he called on the Prime Minister to come clean about the event.
Would the Prime Minister condone having a Christmas party?
What's the answer?
I don't know.
It wasn't a party, it was cheese and wine.
Just be clear, it's not.
Is cheese and wine all right?
No.
It was a business meeting.
I'm joking.
This is recorded. This fictional party was a business meeting. And it was not socially distanced.
Well, in response to the video, Downing Street told GB News that there was no Christmas party and COVID rules have been followed at all times. The Foreign Office's top civil servant has admitted he took a 17-day holiday during the UK's evacuation effort in Afghanistan. Sir Philip Barton told MPs it was a mistake to have stayed on holiday 11 days after Kabul fell to Taliban control, while at the same time former Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab was also on holiday. This comes as a Whitehall whistleblower, Raphael Marshall, accused the government of failing to act and costing lives. Yellow weather warnings for wind and snow have been in place across almost all of the country today as Storm Barra hits. Winds of almost 70 miles per hour have been recorded off the southwest coast of England. The storm has also caused flooding in southwest Ireland. In western Scotland and northwest England, drivers have been warned of potentially hazardous conditions. The US president has told Vladimir Putin that the West is concerned Russia will invade Ukraine and warned of strong economic and other measures should Moscow start a military conflict. The two leaders held 2 hours of virtual talks on Ukraine and other disputes in a video call. The Kremlin has denied having any intention to attack Ukraine. Prime Minister Boris Johnson is warning the new COVID variant Omicron is more transmissible than the Delta strain. This comes as 3 cases are identified in Northern Ireland, the first in the region, taking the total number in the UK to 440. First Minister Nicola Sturgeon is encouraging people in Scotland to work from home as cases there have risen by 11% in the past week. You're right up to date. Now back to Dan Wootton tonight.
The BBC, the usual hysterical boffins and Boris Johnson seem to think the government can cancel my Christmas and yours for a second year in a row, if they so desire. Ho, 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 hell no, no, no. They've got another thing coming. If they think Brits are going to consent to that level of control by the evil Grinches this year, newsflash, our Christmas, and then our January and our February and our March too, is not theirs to take away, Omicron or no Omicron. I, for one, will never grant the government that level of control over my life again, come what may, and to hell with the consequences. We've learned the hard way that the people making these rules have no respect for the law themselves, because they're largely perfunctory guidelines that are impossible to enforce. Especially now we know the PM's official spokeswoman was joking about the fact they had seemingly broken the spirit of the rules at least, and possibly the law themselves, by hosting a Christmas party at number 10 Downing Street just after cancelling Christmas for millions of us.
I've just seen reports on Twitter that there was a Downing Street Christmas party on Friday night. Do you recognise those reports?
I went home. Hold on.
Would the Prime Minister condone having a Christmas party?
What's the answer?
I don't know.
It wasn't a party, it was cheese and wine.
Just be clear, it's not.
Is cheese and wine all right?
No.
It was a business meeting.
I'm joking.
This is recorded. This fictional party was a business meeting. And it was not socially distanced. One more, and then ask anybody have any questions today?
We all know this wasn't a fictional party. This was a very real party. And it stinks to high heaven because these were the people who were stealing Christmas away from us, who were stopping us spending our last festive season with our dying relatives or with our newborn nieces and nephews. It's outrageous. And actually, it looks like Westminster journalists may have been in on this too. Rupert Myers has tweeted tonight to say, let's be clear about this. There are Westminster journalists who attended the Downing Street Christmas parties and helped cover them up, who deserve to never work in journalism again. Who were these journalists? We need to find out. But ever still, the drumbeat is getting louder, folks. That moronic fool and scaremonger Neil Ferguson says Omicron is doubling every 3 days. Cue panic. The broadcasters and most of the newspapers spread his hysteria. Flagship BBC broadcast talk of little else than where the Brits will obediently follow new restrictions and feverishly speculate about Boris having to cancel Christmas. I'm almost starting to believe the BBC wants that to happen.
Leaves all of us with immediate Christmas dilemmas. To party or not to party, to snog or not to snog, see older relatives for a mince pie and a hug, or pass on that this year.
I thought we'd start by getting a sense of how excited or worried you are about Christmas 2021. How are you all feeling?
Can you say with any confidence at the moment that people can keep their Christmas plans?
And with the changing COVID landscape, we'll be asking if we can really have a normal Christmas this year.
The BBC is obsessed with cancelling Christmas. But there's very little reporting from them on the fact that Omicron appears to be a milder variant that hasn't resulted in one COVID death anywhere in the world yet, as far as we know. But that doesn't matter. The lockdown zealots are circling. Politico reported today that government insiders confirmed once again that work from home could be brought back if Omicron's transmissibility puts the NHS under strain. How utterly ridiculous. If this is the new playbook, then we are doomed to a life of restrictions and shutdowns forevermore. Because let me tell you, new variants are a fact of life. But yesterday, Boris continued to play this unique form of psychological torture by teasing the potential for new regulations thanks to Omicron.
Still waiting to see exactly how dangerous it is, what sort of effect it has in terms of deaths and hospitalisations.
Just give it up. Theresa May was an appalling Prime Minister when it came to delivering Brexit. She failed. But she actually would have been the right person to be in charge at the moment as politicians, the media and officials failed to deal with COVID-19.
When is the government going to accept that learning to live with COVID, which we all have to do, means we will almost certainly have an annual vaccine and that we cannot respond to new variants by stopping and starting sectors of our economy, which leads to businesses going under and jobs being lost.
Never did I think I'd see the day when I wanted Theresa May back as Prime Minister. Meanwhile, it really does feel like those in power want to destroy every aspect of Christmas joy. First, Tesco gave Santa a vaccine passport, and now the NHS is using St Nick to pimp booster jabs to the elderly in an advertisement starring Martin Kemp.
This winter, vaccinations are the best form of protection to keep ourselves and our loved ones safe. So whatever you've got planned, it's not too late to get vaccinated.
It's nothing sacred. I have no desire to wish anyone a happy COVID Christmas. We've got to learn from the past that the only way for this madness to end is for us all to claim back our own freedoms. So I will be having a very Merry Christmas where COVID regulations and restrictions on our freedoms and way of life are banished. If you do the same, then our so-called leaders might finally get the lesson that we're not going to take this for another minute. To respond now, my superstar panel, former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, the Conservative commentator, Calvin Robinson, and the journalist and author, Rebecca Reid. So, Calvin Robinson, it looks increasingly like there has been one hell of a cover-up over this Downing Street Christmas party.
Absolutely. I'm fed up about this on so many levels. So first of all, the hypocrisy of this. One rule for them, another rule for us. People literally died alone without touching the hands of their loved ones because of these rules. And at the same time, people in number 10 were partying. Then there's the corruption level of it. The media are supposed to hold the government to account, first and foremost. And it looks like they've been there partying with them and hiding and laughing about it, if anything. Allegra Stratton among them. Credit where it's due, though. The BBC, and I don't very often give them credit, but Ross Atkins did a very good report on this and laid it all out there and laid it bare. But this wasn't a business meeting. For disclosure, I was at Number 10's Christmas party this year. It was anything but a business meeting. So for them to say it's just cheese and nibbles and just cheese and wine and have a laugh at our expense, they're holding us in contempt.
And Dawn Neeson, that's my issue, because, by the way, I want to be very clear on this. If you had a Christmas party last year and you broke the rules and you saw your relatives and friends, I salute you. I say go ahead. I loved the rule breakers. I honour you. Dawn, my fury is about the fact that the people who were enforcing these cruel and draconian and unnecessary rules on us were not prepared to follow them. You've got Matt Hancock snogging every woman left, right and centre behind the scenes at Number 10 Downing Street. And now you've got them downing booze. I'm just so angry, Dawn.
Look, it's the hypocrisy, isn't it? But, I'm not surprised. It's like I expect the government to behave like this now. From day one, they have not only had a deliberate policy of terrorising the population, which I think is profoundly wrong from day one, but also doing as they want to do whilst telling us to do something completely different. And I'm going to be completely honest, I broke COVID rules myself.
Good on you, and I salute you.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people did, because we can't live under those rules. And, your heart breaks for people that really were so terrorised by the government's mismanagement and mismessaging that they didn't see their loved ones, who were
No, indeed.
poorly.
And Rebecca Reid, I'm quite surprised you're not angry about this, because I know you've said previously that this year you don't intend to follow the rules. But I know that in the past, you very much did follow all of these COVID rules.
I mean, so to be fair, I had already gone home for Christmas long before Christmas.
So you were with your
so
family
I was
anyway?
not negatively impacted. I was sneaky and I saw it coming. But I'm a freelancer who can work from my bed. So I had every opportunity to do that. If I had a proper job, I would have had, was in the NHS or something, I wouldn't have been able to.
I woke up alone on Christmas morning. I went to my job. I went to bed alone.
That does suck.
And you know what? Millions of people were in the same situation as me.
But I don't know why, but I just can't seem to quite get it up to care about this. I think there's an element of the same as Dawn. I'm like, am I really surprised these people aren't the best? I think also I sort of accept that historically it has always been that the people at the top haven't been governed by the rules. Like Winston Churchill didn't have to do rationing. Like there is an element of if you were in power, the rules don't apply to you. And it does seem to kind of be true universally. And also I think there's a part of me that thinks these were all relatively healthy, relatively young people who were working together all day, every day. I guess, is it that different if they stay after work and get drunk? Is that different?
Well, no, and Calvin, as I say, if this was a group of young people working at council offices or working in the city, I would actually have no problem with it. I would celebrate it. It's the fact that these morons were the people telling us that we couldn't see our friends and family, that we didn't have the right to God-given freedoms and liberty at Christmas.
Took our liberties away, and they put this guidance together and stood there and said we could not see our loved ones, and at the same time had a party at our expense, most probably, and laughed about it.
Yeah, quite.
And Dawn, sorry, Calvin, go on.
That's fine, it's fine.
Dawn, what about these journalists? Because I'm getting very angry about this. I feel like a lot of these Westminster insider journalists are friends with Carrie Johnson.
It's too
they get
close.
invited to the number 10 flat.
Yeah.
Do not tell me that they are keeping the government honest.
Yeah, they're not. And the thing is, they have got too close now. And they know that if they had have broken the confidence and revealed about this party, they'd never get another story for their newspaper or for their TV website. But I do think it is just the hypocrisy. They're letting their readers and their viewers down, Dan. And that's the one thing I've never tried to do with my newspaper, and I know we don't do that here. And it's you can't get too...
Well, you were fiercely independent, weren't you, Dawn, when
Totally
you read
independent on
us
absolutely
daily stuff?
everything. And the thing is, you can't get too close to the source of your story, no matter what the source of that story is.
Also, what a scoop to not run with. Like, if I had known that, I could
I know, but they can't run with it, Rebecca, because they were there.
I know, but come on, we'd forgive them. If somebody was like, here's what happened, I've got pictures, we'd get over the fact they were there, wouldn't we?
Yes, we would, but I mean...
I think something needs to change. These people, the government aren't supposed to rule us. They're supposed to work for us. And at the moment, it seems like they are governing us. They are ruling us as a monarchy almost, giving us new legislation, new rules every other month, every other week at some point, and taking our liberties away willy-nilly in order to do...
You know, you're just so right, Kelvin, because during all this, you have forgotten that we elected them. They are there to represent us, to work for us. We pay them. And suddenly it's like I'm living in some individual fiefdom.
But if you didn't watch the news every day, would you even know what the law is anymore?
No. No.
Well, Neil Oliver said last night he has no intention of even finding out what these laws are, because if you don't know...
No. But it's quite scary to think that those people, nobody there was being like, oh, we're going to get caught, we're going to get in trouble. Like, I can't walk past a policeman on the street without police person on the street without being like, oh my God, have I done something? And these people were like, yeah, we'll throw a rager in central London and no one will notice. That's pretty entitled.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, I am sick of these journalists who would rather be friends with Carrie Johnson, who would rather have the access to the apartment above number 11 Downing Street, because that's not your job. That is not your job. Your job as a Westminster journalist is to hold the government accountable, to make sure that they're doing the right thing. On this show, I am fiercely independent. I don't want to be friends with those people. Obviously, I give credit to the government when they've done great things, but I cannot fathom that they were prepared to destroy our Christmas, to snatch it away, even this year, encouraging lots of businesses to cancel Christmas parties when they were having some booze fest at number 10 Downing Street and laughing about it. We've been taken for mugs, and I'm not going to be taken for a mug any longer, which is why I think they have no credibility to control our lives in that manner anymore. Dawn Neeson, Calvin Robinson, Rebecca Reid, my superstar panel, they are here all night. But sticking with this breaking news tonight, GB News star Nigel Farage will give his exclusive verdict on the bombshell footage of the PM's official spokesperson joking about a potentially illegal Christmas party. And you know, it's Nigel, so I'm sure he won't be holding back. Don't miss it at 9:30. But up next, is Prince Harry right that you should quit your job if it doesn't bring you joy? We'll debate that in The Clash after the break, but I want to know what you think too. Email me, dan@gbnews.uk, or tweet me at gbnews.
It's time to remind ourselves, there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello again. The worst of Storm Barrow's weather is now easing, but the weather stays unsettled during the next 24 hours with further rain or showers and continued gusty winds in many places. You can see Storm Barrow, a dartboard area of low pressure, which deepened rapidly as it made its way across the Atlantic on Monday and the start of Tuesday, now slowing down and gradually filling, so the worst of its impacts will come down in the next 24 hours, but still the potential for some very unsettled weather overnight. Through the evening, 70 to 80 mile per hour wind gusts possible for parts of Wales and to the Bristol Channel as well. It stays windy in the northeast as well, and showers wrapped around that area of low pressure, or longer spells of rain with further hill snow for northern England as well as Scotland. So we start off Wednesday very unsettled with that low still in place. The winds will be coming down through the day, but it's going to take a while, so still the potential for gales for South Wales and southwest England, 65 mile per hour wind gusts. And for northeast Scotland, Northern Ireland, parts of western England and Wales, a continuous feed of showers through the day. The weather stays unsettled in many spots. Some drier and brighter interludes towards the east of England, western Scotland, for example. However, all in all, it's an unsettled day. Expect showers, expect gusty winds, and it will feel cool or cold with all of that weather going on. Into Wednesday evening and overnight, we're going to see further showers coming in from that area of low pressure, especially in the east and northeast, and a few coming through to Western England, Wales and Northern Ireland. A lot of cloud cover, and with that breeze, temperatures generally holding up overnight, but potential for a chilly start for Western Scotland, perhaps 1 or 2 spots further south as well. A bright start in these areas, a better chance of sunshine coming through on Thursday morning, and showers gradually easing through the day in many spots. But further rain arrives in the far west towards the end of Thursday. That makes its way across the country on Friday, followed by showers. More rain to come on Saturday.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk. Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
We've got what I'm describing as a smorgasbord of common sense coming up tonight. Nigel Farage, Darren Grimes, Zuby and Rod Liddle. But first, it's time for the clash. The king of hypocrisy, Prince Harry, has yet again shown how hopelessly out of touch he is with the public. Speaking in his new role as Chief Impact Officer, whatever that means, for a mental health firm, he said many people around the world have been stuck in jobs that didn't bring them joy, and now they're putting their mental health and happiness first. This is something to be celebrated. Mr. Nonsense, cried the Sun newspaper this morning, highlighting not everybody has the luxury of giving up royal duties to live in an £11 million mansion. And as I pointed out in my Mail Online column, Harry has never experienced the fear felt by millions of Brits every day who work a multitude of jobs they don't necessarily like very much to be able to put food on the table for their family and keep a roof over their head. So what do you think? You can vote on my Twitter poll at GB News, and remember to tweet or email your views to dan@gbnews.uk. But to debate this now, former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, a member of our Superstar panel, and the presenter and DJ, Ashley James. So, Ashley, you think I'm wrong on this, and this is a positive message from Prince Harry. Can you explain?
I've actually been nodding along to a lot of what you say tonight, but not this particular thing. So I'll be honest, when I first saw the headlines, I actually did agree with you. And I thought, what on earth does a prince know about quitting jobs? Because you're right, we are in the COVID era. There's so many hardships. People do have to do multiple jobs. My parents have 2 jobs and they have had my entire life. I know hard work and I know how hard it is to feel joy in the workplace. But when I looked into the context of what he said, there is something called the Great Resignation, and more people around the world are quitting jobs now that aren't bringing them joy. And they are putting not just mental health first, but the stress of the pandemic on their work and home life, things that make them miserable. Like in the past, women would typically quit their jobs to have children. These days, a lot of women want to carry on with their jobs. So men are having to find more flexible work options to be able to support 2 working parents. So I thought it was really interesting that Microsoft conducted a global survey that showed a massive 41% of all workers are thinking of quitting. And I think it's important to remember as well that when you're unhappy in your job, and that could be because you're being overlooked, it could be bullying, it could be that you're experiencing a burnout, chronic stress, which then leads to physical health problems. It can impact not only on your professional life, but also on your personal life and your relationships. So, of course, quitting is subjective for everyone. Not everyone, myself included, is in a position where you could quit your job with nothing to go to. Everyone has different financial obligations and dependents. And I think sometimes to quit for happiness and for mental health, there's sacrifice in there, whether that's selling a car or moving back in with friends or with family. Of course, that's a privileged position as well. But I do think that these days, my parents would disagree with this statement as well, but work is more than just a job now. It's friends, it's community, it's lifestyle, it's all encompassing. And I feel that you don't have to always be trapped by your circumstances. And yes, that's a very privileged thing to say. And yes, not everyone has the luxury of that. But if you are suffering from anything in your job, you can
the vast majority of people do not have the luxury and the privilege to take that position. And Dawn, I think this whole scenario proves that Prince Harry is actually on another planet, because some of the happiest people I know in my life are folk who aren't in jobs that they love, but it means that they don't live to work, they work to live, and they focus on life outside of work because they know that they have to go and do their job in order to put food on the table, to put a roof over their head, to pay for their children's education. So I just feel like his comments were so off base.
I don't think he's reading the room on this one at all, Dan. It's all very well with such an incredibly privileged position. I mean, let's face it, he doesn't actually work at the moment, does he? He seems to get paid millions of dollars for being the face of various companies, and for Netflix, who doesn't appear to do much for them. And Netflix, a company, by the way, that's stitching his own family up, by the way. And when your daddy gives you £30 million, as Charles has funded his lifestyle. And, let's face it, a man in his late 30s should not be living off of daddy's money still. It's just incredibly privileged to say that. And, of course, yes, Ashley's right. Your mental health is incredibly important. And if you are lucky enough to have a job that you are very unhappy in, that you then leave, that is understandable. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about coming to the end of a pandemic in this country. People are worried about keeping the roofs over their head. They're worried about putting food on the table. They're worried about how they're going to pay the increased taxes that are coming up, the green taxes that have come up, the increased national insurance we're going to have to pay. They're worried about education and health and all of those things. They don't have the luxury of thinking, I'm unhappy at work, and then I just leave and go and do something else. Look, in theory, in an ideal world, it's lovely, but Harry is just not reading the room where most ordinary people are now. And I can hear Meghan's voice as well talking through him, definitely on this one. And I just think he needs to actually be a bit more aware of what ordinary people are going through in this country. And we can't afford to leave jobs. And can I just say, Dan, that if you are unhappy at work at the moment, and obviously lots of people don't love their jobs, and it's not, it's not a way of socialising. A lot of people just have to go to work to earn money. If you are unhappy at work, OK, talk to, your human resources, someone that's a professional that can help you mentally. Don't listen to a pampered prince who's living in a £12 million California mansion.
Yeah, because actually, I would argue that what Prince Harry has said could actually spark a mental health crisis for poor folk who actually start thinking, my goodness, maybe I'm doing the wrong thing. Maybe I shouldn't stay in this job that's paying for my family. Actually, what he's doing could have the counter impact.
I think we have to remember that he was not telling people you should quit your job. He was commenting on something that has already happened, the Great Resignation. And I have to say, I have full sympathy for people that are trapped in jobs that are bad for their mental health, because I have a friend going through it at the moment, and she would love to quit her job, but she is terrified that there is nothing else to go to because we are in COVID. So I totally understand that. And of course, there is privilege there. But I think what we are talking about is that you don't have to be trapped by your circumstances anymore. When I quit my job at 25, and let's remember what makes us happy and our career choices and the privilege that we are given or not given, it is so subjective, because one person could be so happy in one job and that could be someone else's worst nightmare. It's not saying it's a bad job. We're talking about what makes individuals happy. And I would hate for people to feel trapped by their circumstances. Of course, not everybody has the luxury of quitting a job with nothing to go to. But I know people who work 2 jobs or maybe start studying in another job because start studying in another profession because they hope that in the future they are able to move professions. Whereas, say, my parents, and definitely I feel more people in that generation, would always say quitting is bad, and if you get a job, you're lucky, and you should do it until the day you die.
That's where
I do feel
that's where I'm at, Ashley. I'm old school. I think, you know what? People who stick at something end up having a better life because it gives them resilience. It proves that stoicism is a good thing. And I think this woke mumbo jumbo coming from Prince Harry in California is doing a real disservice to hardworking folk. But Ashley James, I do appreciate you having the debate versus our very own Dawn Neeson. Dawn, we'll see you very soon. So do you agree with Harry that you should quit a job that doesn't make you joyful? Dave on Twitter writes, jobs aren't meant to be joyful. Good point, actually. With responsibility comes stress. Some people learn how to handle it, others don't. Kai writes, I quit my job, which made me depressed, over 10 years ago when my son was born. He's 10 now, and being home raising him means more to me than any depressing job. And James says, this just shows how far Harry has become disconnected to the real world. He really does live in La La Land. And your verdict is now in. Just 30% of you agree with Prince Harry that you should quit a job that doesn't make you joyful, while 70% of you say you shouldn't quit. Coming up, why aren't universities allowed to call out snowflake students who refuse to listen to opposing rules? Rod Liddell has been at the centre of a free speech storm this week, and he'll be let loose exclusively here at 10:20. But after the break, what happens next after that bombshell footage of the PM's ex-spokeswoman joking about an alleged Tier 4 Christmas party? GBNews star Nigel Farage gives his initial verdict straight after the break.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Time now for What the Farage with our very own Nigel Farage. And breaking tonight, bombshell footage has been leaked to ITV News showing the Prime Minister's then spokeswoman, Allegra Stratton, joking about a potentially illegal Christmas party at number 10 last December.
I've just seen reports on Twitter that there was a Downing Street Christmas party on Friday night. Do you recognise those reports?
I went home. Hold on.
Would the Prime Minister condone having a Christmas party?
What's the answer?
I don't know. It wasn't a party, it was cheese and wine.
Just be clear, it's not. Is cheese and wine all right?
No.
It was a business meeting.
I'm joking.
This is recorded. This fictional party was a business meeting. And it was not socially distanced. One more, and then ask anybody have any questions today?
This clip comes despite countless moments where government ministers denied any knowledge of such a party in the past week.
All guidance was followed completely during number 10.
I've been reassured that all guidance was carefully followed as it continually is.
Does that answer your question?
Last Christmas, were Christmas parties allowed in London?
So look, if you're so generally no. No. Of course, if there was a formal party held, of course, that's something that was clearly contrary to the guidance that you just cited.
We can agree it was wrong. If it happened, it was wrong.
If something unsubstantiated from anonymous sources actually materialised, then of course it would be wrong.
I don't even know if an event took place, but if it did, that no rules were broken.
And the Met Police, Nigel, have just released a statement in the past few minutes saying we are aware of footage obtained by ITV News relating to alleged breaches of the health protection regulations at a government building in December 2020. It is our policy not to routinely investigate retrospective breaches of the COVID-19 regulations. However, the footage will form part of our considerations. Nigel, what a mess.
I remember that Saturday evening, sitting at home, press statement with the Prime Minister about Christmas. I can't tell you how angry I was to be told that Christmas is cancelled, and so all my plans had to change. That is as nothing compared to the upset tonight millions are going to feel who had the last chance to have a Christmas with their mother, their father, their grandmother, their grandfather, who are no longer with us. Whilst at the same time, those that were making the rules, spreading fear through government adverts, actually thought it was funny. They thought it was funny. Did you see Allegra Stratton?
Yeah.
It was all a big, enormous joke. And not only is this about Boris Johnson and an arrogant, Aldertonian, Oxbridge government that treats us with contempt on everything from Owen Paterson's income to this even bigger issue. You also have to remember that Allegra Stratton is married to a very leading journalist in Westminster, and we understand that journalists attended the pub as well. So this isn't just about the political class ignoring us, treating us with contempt, laughing at us, looking down upon us. It's actually about mainstream media as well. And do you know what, Dan? Very often there are stories that will excite you and I, but they are Westminster bubble stories. They're stories that we get very worked up about, we live within the village, but Joe Soap says, hey, you know what? I've got more things to worry about. This story cuts through. This story is going to lead to more rage and anger amongst the general British population than we have seen for years. And I'm going to stick my neck out here. This is the beginning of the end of Boris Johnson. He has lied his way out of so many things all through his life. His relationship with the truth, as Sir Keir Starmer rather brilliantly said in the last few minutes, is socially distanced. The truth It doesn't mean anything to Boris Johnson. But in the end, the compulsive liar gets caught out. And in my opinion, even he can't lie his way out of this one.
Well, Nigel Farage, Isabel Oakeshott, one of our presenters on GB News and a top journalist herself, has tweeted this evening saying if Boris Johnson knew about this party, then he is the one who should resign. He made the rules. Clearly, he didn't think they were worth following. The nation suffered and still does. How could he have turned a blind eye? Do you think this is a resignation matter?
Boris Johnson won't resign unless he's forced to resign by his own backbenchers. He's a career politician. Career politicians don't resign because they're not in politics for principle. They're in it to climb the greasy pole. I've said it's the beginning of the end of Boris Johnson, because why would anybody believe anything he ever says again, anything the government ever says again? And if they want, through Omicron, to start bringing in new regulations, why should any of us obey a single one of them? And that's the point at which government actually loses all credibility. The point at which we don't just grumble about government and decisions they make, but we decide en masse to disregard government is a very serious moment. And I think all confidence has been ebbing away in the Johnson government, certainly amongst Conservative supporters, because it isn't even vaguely a Conservative government. It's sort of a trendy West London, Southwest London, Richmond, Green, Liberal Democrat party. But lying is the greatest sin. You do things wrong in life. You've done them, Dan. I've done them. You hold your hands up. but actually,
yeah, exactly. I was wrong. I made a mistake. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And actually, that can work. I remember Ronnie Reagan years ago, and he had lied to the American people over the funding in South America. He went live on television and said, to you, the American people, like you, I'm a sinner too. I've done the most awful thing. I've told you an untruth, and I apologise to you. And the whole of America said, oh my God, isn't he marvellous? Because he'd fessed up to the thing. Boris has never fessed up to anything in his life. He's always got away with it. My opinion is he won't get away with this.
And Nigel, I want to talk about the Westminster bubble a little bit more with you, because I'm becoming increasingly concerned that some of our most senior correspondents in Westminster who work for newspapers and who work for broadcasters are actually too close to this administration and more concerned about being invited up to the number 11 flat and being hosted by Gary Johnson than they are then reporting the truth. And there's this tweet that I want to share with you from the barrister and well-connected political commentator Rupert Myers this evening, who says, let me be clear about this. There are Westminster journalists who attended the Downing Street Christmas parties and helped cover them up, who never deserve to work in journalism again. Now, Nigel, it seems like you're saying you've heard the same thing.
Well, look, I'm going to repeat the point. Allegra Stratton's husband is a very senior Westminster journalist and writes articles as the ultimate insider. There is no way he didn't know about this event. And from what I'm told, and it's hearsay at the moment, there were some very senior political editors and representatives of media organisations in that room on that evening. By the way, also the Mirror are now suggesting that Gavin Williamson also held a Christmas party. And have we all forgotten, Dan, have we forgotten that Nimco Ali, Carrie Johnson's friend, spent Christmas staying with the Johnsons? Yeah. And it was all laughed off. She was part of our childcare support bubble. Clearly, hopelessly untrue. And yet Boris just gets away with it. You know, if you drive your motor car at 120 miles an hour down the motorway every day, you know what happens? In the end, you get caught. You drink drive repeatedly. In the end, you get caught. If you're a compulsive liar, in the end, you get found out. And I just get the sense we're at that moment this evening.
Well, Nigel, I have to be honest with you, my personal rage is off the scale because even though I was completely opposed to these rules last year, and by the way, I'd been shouting my opposition for months and months and months, even though I felt that way, yeah, it was hard to miss, even though I felt that way, I cancelled my Christmas plans last year. I woke up in my house on my own. I went to bed on my own. I was with none of my loved ones. And let me tell you, and I have to be careful, obviously, because we follow Ofcom regulations, but never again will I allow my personal freedom to be curtailed in that manner.
No, Dan, as I say, if we can grumble at regulations, we can grumble at laws, but generally we abide by them.
Absolutely.
Because that is what living in a peaceful democracy is actually all about. And we say, we can't stand with so-and-so, we'll vote for somebody else next time, but we jolly well put up with it for now. But if the electorate become contemptuous of those that are making the law, you're then in a very dangerous situation where mass breaking of law actually seems to be the right thing to do. And that's not a healthy society to live in. There have been so many things over the last few months. I think particularly the attitude to lobbying and MPs' incomes that perhaps didn't cut through with the public, if I'm being honest, in a way that you and I thought that it might. But when you cancel every family's Christmas plans in this land, and when 750,000 deaths later on, there are millions of their relatives and friends saying, we missed out on that chance to spend time with them in their last Christmas on this earth, and you, leading us, didn't just act differently, didn't just say, do as I say, not as I do. When you prepared for whatever media onslaught might come, you thought it was funny. How blooming dare you?
Couldn't have put it better myself. Nigel Farage, fascinating analysis on this big breaking story tonight. Nigel says this could be the beginning of the end for Boris Johnson. Of course, Nigel will be back with his own analysis on Farage tomorrow at 7 p.m.
I will.
Thank you, Nigel. Coming up after the break. Following the tragic case of Arthur Labinjo Hughes, should life mean life for child killers? I'll pose that question to my panel in the Media Buzz at 10, where we'll also bring you a first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages. I can imagine there'll only be one story dominating. But next, has the chaos of Storm Arwen and now Storm Bara proved that the Green Revolution could actually be a disaster? Darren Grimes debates that and speaks out on behalf of the neglected North in The Outsiders straight after the break.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello again. The worst of Storm Bara's weather is now easing, but the weather stays unsettled during the next 24 hours with further rain or showers and continued gusty winds in many places. You can see Storm Bara, a dartboard area of low pressure which deepened rapidly as it made its way across the Atlantic on Monday and the start of Tuesday, now slowing down and gradually filling, so the worst of its impacts will come down in the next 24 hours, but still the potential for some very unsettled weather overnight. Through the evening, 70 to 80 mile per hour wind gusts possible for parts of Wales and to the Bristol Channel as well. Stays windy in the northeast as well, and showers wrapped around that area of low pressure or longer spells of rain with further hill snow for northern England as well as Scotland. So we start off Wednesday very unsettled with that low still in place. The winds will be coming down through the day, but it's going to take a while, so still the potential for gales for South Wales and southwest England, 65 mile per hour wind gusts. And for northeast Scotland, Northern Ireland, parts of western England and Wales, a continuous feed of showers through the day. The weather stays unsettled in many spots. Some drier and brighter interludes towards the east of England, western Scotland, for example. However, all in all, it's an unsettled day. Expect showers, expect gusty winds, and it will feel cool or cold with all of that weather going on. Into Wednesday evening and overnight, we're going to see further showers coming in from that area of low pressure, especially in the east and northeast, and a few coming through to Western England, Wales and Northern Ireland. A lot of cloud cover, and with that breeze, temperatures generally holding up overnight, but potential for a chilly start for Western Scotland, perhaps one or two spots further south as well. A bright start in these areas, a better chance of sunshine coming through on Thursday morning, and showers gradually easing through the day in many spots. But further rain arrives in the far west towards the end of Thursday. That makes its way across the country on Friday, followed by showers. More rain to come on Saturday.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Rod Liddle and Zuby still to come, but Darren Grimes is tonight's outsider first. The dreaded Storm Barra has wreaked havoc across the UK today. Tens of thousands have been left without power in Ireland after being hit by winds of up to 80 miles per hour. Communities in Scotland and the northeast that are still recovering from the devastation of Storm Arwen have also been battered, bringing further misery to households that in some cases have endured close to 2 weeks without power. I'm appalled that these poor folk were practically abandoned by London-based decision makers and their plight kicked down the news agenda by journalists in their metropolitan bubbles. You cannot tell me that had a storm ravaged London or the southeast that things would have been as slow. So has Storm Arwen proven that levelling up is a load of baloney and shown yet again that the North isn't really a priority for those in power, Darren Grimes?
Well, isn't it interesting, Dan, that we hear so much about levelling up, don't we? It was the most used phrase in the government's lexicon. But there have been absolutely crazy scenes up here and precious little action. The army have had to be brought in. Your Home Affairs editor, Mark White, he's been showing us all day what Storm Barra's now doing as well. I mean, GB News presenter and the Conservative MP, Deanna Davidson, on Sunday, extraordinarily, she continued, bless her, broadcasting from a hotel that was offering services to her patch in Bishop Auckland, with this hotel acting as a community hub for those affected. Really nice to see, but it shouldn't have to happen, Dan, because I think these storms, for me at least, have raised two really crucial questions. The first being, Would people, as you say, that have been left without power, had it been London without the capability to heat, power or shower within their own homes? I'm not convinced of that, Dan. I'm not convinced it would be. And I don't think you have to be the Daily Mirror or somewhere to the left of Jeremy Corbyn to notice that, because that's where the nation's media and political class spend their time, right? As you say, that's where the decision makers in London are. Had it happened there, there'd have been a public inquiry announced by now. And I think ultimately that's what needs to happen. And it calls into question the whole premise of that levelling up slogan. Can you ever meaningfully level up in a country that's as centralised around London as ours? And the second really important point, Dan, I think is on our reliance on forms of energy that are soon to be, banned or deemed incompatible with the government's net zero agenda. It struck me how a reliance on fossil fuels that have now been, widely condemned. What would we have done, Dan, without actually those crucial access to diesel, access to gas? When you don't have those things pumping through your home, when there's a disruption at the grid and you can't get through, you've got people in Northumberland, Dan. It's absolutely awash with wind turbines there, but they're no use to man, no beast at a time like this. You've got people in their cars charging their phones, using the diesel engine to power their phones to call the national grid and say, hang on a minute, where's my electricity? And meanwhile, the Prime Minister is moonlighting in a second job as leader of the Green Party, it seems. So all of these things, I think, are called into question now. And ultimately, people up here just want to know, Dan, that their Christmas is going to be as good and nice as the one that Boris Johnson had last year in number 10 Downing Street.
Darren, what's your take on the breaking news of the night?
I can't believe it. Honestly, I am like you. I am spitting feathers. I've just listened to you speaking to Nigel Farage there, and I completely agree with him. I think if it might not be the end of Boris Johnson, but I certainly think it's the beginning of the end. Because if there's one thing that this country cannot stand more than anything else, it's a hypocrite. It's a hypocrite that stood there and said to the British people, you need to forgo your Christmas. It might be your last Christmas with Granny. You might want to hug them close, but no. You must forgo Christmas because of the public health emergency. And despite that, we hear that they were enjoying wine and cheese in number 10 Downing Street and laughing about it at a press conference. I mean, that's extraordinary.
It is a signal, Darren Grimes, and I think you're right. I think it's a bit of a moment where we say, certainly I hope that we say, is enough is enough, no more. You're not going to take our freedoms and civil liberties away again because we know that you don't take these rules seriously enough to even follow them yourselves. We had Matt Hancock snogging some woman disgracefully, even though he's married, breaking all COVID regulations. Now we have a party at number 10 Downing Street. No, look, I say enough. Forget trying to control us, because we know what we need to do for ourselves. But Darren Grimes, fascinating analysis. Thank you so much. We'll speak next week. It is 10 o'clock. Thank you for staying with us. But still to come on Dan Wootton tonight, is it anti-liberty to believe you have a right to remain illness-free? Voice of the People's Zubi debates how COVID finger pointers will tear us apart in uncancelled. Why aren't universities allowed to call out students who refuse to listen to opposing views? One of our favourites, Rod Liddell, has been at the centre of a free speech storm after audience members walked out of his talk at Durham University. He'll respond to the investigation into him and the institution's principal, Professor Tim Luckhurst, who branded his critics pathetic. After the tragic case of Arthur Labinjo Hughes, should life actually mean life for child killers? And should Brits stop being made to feel guilty for our country's colonial past? I'll put those stories and more of today's top headlines to my panel in the Media Buzz. And we're going to bring you a first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages. I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of that Allegra Stratton bombshell. We'll also crown the next Greatest Britain in Union Jackass 2. But first, the news with Simon Pusey.
Hello, and here are your latest headlines. A leaked recording of the Prime Minister's former press secretary shows her laughing about a Downing Street Christmas party in December last year. The exclusive video released by ITV News shows Allegra Stratton answering mock questions at Number 10, 4 days after the alleged party, while the country was under lockdown restrictions. Downing Street maintains there was no party, but Labour's Sir Keir Starmer says it's obvious what happened and accused the government of lying. The Met Police say the following footage will form part of their investigations into rule breaches.
Would the Prime Minister condone having a Christmas?
What's the answer?
I don't know. I didn't.
Wasn't a party, it was cheese and wine.
Just be clear, it's not. Is cheese and wine all right?
No.
It was a business meeting.
I'm joking.
This is recorded. This fictional party was a business meeting. And it was not socially distanced.
The Foreign Office's top civil servant has admitted he took a 17-day holiday during the UK's evacuation effort in Afghanistan. Sir Philip Barton told MPs it was a mistake to have stayed on holiday 11 days after Kabul fell to Taliban control, while at the same time, former Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab was also on holiday. This comes as a Whitehall whistleblower, Raphael Marshall, accused the government of failing to act and costing lives. Yellow weather warnings for wind and snow have been in place across almost all of the country today as Storm Barra hits. Winds of almost 70 miles per hour have been recorded off the southwest coast of England. The storm has also caused flooding in southwest Ireland. In western Scotland and northwest England, drivers have been warned of potentially hazardous conditions. The US president has told Vladimir Putin that the West is concerned Russia will invade Ukraine and warned of strong economic and other measures should Moscow start a military conflict. The two leaders held 2 hours of virtual talks on Ukraine and other disputes in a video call. The Kremlin has denied having any intention to attack Ukraine. Prime Minister Boris Johnson is warning the new COVID variant Omicron is more transmissible than the Delta strain. This comes as 3 cases are identified in Northern Ireland, the first in the region, taking the total number in the UK to 440. First Minister Nicola Sturgeon is encouraging people in Scotland to work from home, as cases there have risen by 11% in the past week. You are right up to date. Now back to Dan Wootton tonight.
Time for tomorrow's News Tonight, now in our Media Buzz. Let's kick off with the very first look at the front pages, hot off the press. The Eye are leading with the news that it's beginning to look a lot like last Christmas. This comes as Boris Johnson refuses to rule out asking people in England to work from home, as 80,000 daily cases of Omicron are predicted by Christmas. Well, let me just repeat, he shouldn't be telling us anything after we've learned that he won't be following the rules at Number 10 Downing Street. The FT reports on the tense situation unfolding in Europe. Their headline, US urges Berlin to block Russian gas line in event of Ukraine strike. Joe Biden is putting pressure on Germany and Brussels to prevent a pipeline from Russia that will fuel the European Union as part of sanctions that will be unleashed on Putin if he does invade. On the front of the Yorkshire Post, push to give booster jabs to over 40s. This is the news that third shots of the COVID vaccine are to become available only 3 months after the second. My superstar panel back with me now, former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, the Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson and the journalist and author Rebecca Reid. Boris Johnson yesterday vowed to bring in a new Arthur's Law to make sure evil child killers die behind bars. In an interview with The Sun, the Prime Minister said anyone who plans then carries out the murder of a child should never be released from prison, so we're toughening the law to make whole life orders the starting point for such abhorrent crimes. Johnson cracked the whip last night to bring forward a rapid review on toughening sentences handed down to tragic Arthur Labinjo Hughes' killer father Thomas Hughes and evil, depraved stepmother murderer Emma Tustin, after Arthur's grieving grandmother demanded that the couple serve life sentences.
Life should mean life. Life should mean life. They took Arthur's life, and he's not going to get his life back. He's not going to have children of his own. They've took him from my daughter. Life should mean life. There was no remorse, no sympathy shown. Absolutely depraved, sadistic, torturous, evil, calculating people.
There's a special place in hell, isn't there?
Yeah, they'll never go to heaven. they'll burn in hell.
She's right. I agree with every word, Dawn Neeson.
I think hell's too good for them, to be honest with you.
I still cannot get over hearing that little boy's cries. Nobody loves me, nobody's going to feed me. How any human being can hear a child say that and not help, not do anything, and to inflict more pain and suffering on that little boy. It's just absolutely breaking. And, you know, as his gran's just said there, I mean, life in this case has to mean life, Dan. Because, you know, she's got 29 years, she'll be out when she's, 60? That's not old. No. She's not going to learn any lessons because she's that depraved to do that to a child. There's no way, she can't change. A leopard like that will not change its spots. So, and I don't want her out inflicting anything on any other children.
Calvin Robinson, the issue is surely, though, this is a Conservative government that has been in power for a long time. Stop the talk, Boris. Introduce the law. Walk the walk.
Well, I agree with the lady that life should mean life. I don't understand how after serving half of a life sentence people are out on remand, or how people get suspended sentences, or how people get early release, even more so during COVID times, the early release is extended. We need to change something in this country that if you get life in prison, that you spend your life in prison, literally, unless we're going to bring back capital
Especially
punishment.
with our parole board at the moment making so many mistakes and having the wool pulled over their eyes by so many killers.
Well, it comes down to what do we think our criminal justice system is about? Is it about rehabilitation or is it about punishment? And I think in cases like this, actually punishment is more important.
You can't rehabilitate.
I wonder if there's a place for us to actually acknowledge that when we're sentencing people. So are you getting a rehabilitatory criminal sentence or are you getting a punishment one? Because you can't rehabilitate somebody who is that broken. I think something must genuinely have happened to both. Well, I think he was weak and she was evil, and he was evil by association. But I think something must have happened to make her like that. I don't think people are born like that. My frustration is that I feel a bit like Boris Johnson is kind of trying to capitalise on the nation's universal horror. And there is nobody in this country who isn't horrified by this story. And it feels a bit like he's kind of almost looking for popularity with this, when in reality, the more sensible thing to do, life sentence with this isn't going to prevent this from happening again. Better social service care, more power for the social services, better guidance about what to do if you think a child is being abused. Those are measures that might stop children from being abused again.
I tell you what,
And not shutting schools.
No more lockdowns.
And that won't have helped.
Children,
definitely.
there are still 10,000 children that are missing off the radar.
Yeah.
How many other little Arthurs are there out there?
And also homeschooling possibly being really strongly policed, because that is a place outside of COVID times where sometimes abuse is hidden.
I mean, I was still a teacher.
Those evil people just didn't put Arthur back in school.
Well, this is it. I was still a teacher when the first lockdown came into play. This was our major concern that the government didn't seem to care about, in that all of the kids that we looked after, even the ones that weren't on the registers, the ones that we knew we had to keep an eye out, all of them were just deserted and left to it, kept locked away in abusive homes. And this is the government's fault.
I think also people don't feel empowered to intervene. I think there is the sense that parenting should be, that no judgment and no shame about parenting. And I agree with that, but in the same sense, that grandmother didn't say anything. That grandmother doesn't see, it certainly didn't say it in strong enough terms. And perhaps if she had felt more empowered or known what to do, then intervention might have been more effective.
But the mad thing is, Arthur's uncle did actually go to the police and say, there is something, you've got to help, you've got to look into this. And he was threatened with arrest.
Well, yeah, he was threatened with arrest because it was a lockdown.
He was breaking lockdown
And he was told he couldn't break lockdown rules.
It's just
the grandparents also flagged it, so too did teachers. So I completely agree, there's a whole load of issues here, but I just think we need to start from a very simple base, which is that absolutely, Boris, I agree, life should mean life. You're the Prime Minister. You're a very powerful Prime Minister with a massive majority. Do it. Yeah. Stop talking about it. Just do it.
The only thing I would say, Dan, is that the thing that occurred to me this afternoon is it's kind of complicated because a life sentence at 21 is very different from a life sentence at 60. And I think it is difficult because you're then trying to basically predict how long somebody's going to live, therefore predict their sentence. And I guess if we're aiming for justice being equal, it probably is easier if we can give people specific numbers rather than life. But it should be in their power to give a 100-year sentence, a 200-year sentence.
Well, personally, I think all murderers should be behind bars forever. I'm big on that. I know that it would overwhelm the system. I understand that. But let's start very simply. If you kill a child or a police officer, it is a term that means life.
Why is a police
You
officer different
never-
from anybody else?
Because it's a fundamental plank of society
So
that
if
we
I-
have to have respect for law and order. But I've
What
just
if I
said,
kill a nurse?
I've just said, Rebecca, I've just said, didn't I? I think anyone who murders
Yeah, but
anyone
police is not different from
should
anyone
stay
else.
behind bars forever. But I think to maintain a sort of functioning society, the police have to be protected, and police killers should go to jail for life, and I think so too should.
I don't
child
think police are
killers.
special or different from anybody else. I think
Well, as I said, I personally would want every murderer to be behind bars for life, but it doesn't seem like there's a stomach for that with this government. Now, Matt Hancock has continued his pathetic apology tour today when he was asked flat out by Philip Schofield on This Morning about whether it was his dyslexia that caused him to break lockdown rules.
I didn't follow those rules myself.
And that is the point, Mr. Hancock, and that is why, in my opinion, you have no place in public life. Calvin, he's on this tour. He's so craven to return to the cabinet. No, I'm sorry, no. His rule breaking was so brazen. I don't want him back.
I agree. This is the first time I've seen this, and I'm blown away. First of all, I don't know why he's being invited around on the media circuit in the first place. He's relevant now. He lost his job for very good reasons. Secondly, why is Philip Schofield offering him a victimhood card? So here's a get out of jail free card.
Why are they talking about dyslexia? Where did that come in?
He wrote an article today about how he's dyslexic, but Dawn,
I'm dyslexic, but I feel like I can commit crimes.
I'm sorry, all of these softball interviews are pathetic. Matt Hancock, come and sit on this sofa and then you'll get a proper interview, and then you can try and justify why you broke your wife's heart, why you lied to the country, why you are always thinking about what's in your pants.
Well, let's be honest,
I'm
Dan,
sick of
because
it.
Philip Schofield got called brave for breaking his wife's heart. So there's something there, isn't there?
Exactly.
I've just learnt the new symptom of dyslexia, though, I must admit. Not what I want to think about.
As a dyslexic dyspraxic, apparently I can now commit crimes. I'm delighted.
But look,
I'm so excited. I'm going to go and shag somebody else's wife.
it all plays into this idea of hypocrisy. And I think given the whole country followed these ridiculous rules, on the whole, we will not forgive the folk who were in charge and were not prepared to follow them
We're not going to do it again,
themselves.
Dan. I don't know a single person that if we were told to lock down now would do it.
No, indeed.
I really don't.
And I'm sorry, Matt Hancock, as a result of that, you're not coming back. You're not coming back. We are done with you. Dawn Neeson, Calvin Robinson, Rebecca Reed, thank you so much. Do stand by, because after the break, why aren't universities allowed to call out snowflake students who refuse to listen to opposing views? One of our favourite contributors, Rod Liddell, has been hitting the headlines this week after a walkout over his speech at Durham University. He'll reveal what really happened in an exclusive interview next. Plus, after a Bristol school votes to distance itself from slave trader Edward Colston, how do we stop our history from being erased? The Media Buzz is next with that and more of tomorrow's front pages.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello again. The worst of Storm Barrow's weather is now easing, but the weather stays unsettled during the next 24 hours with further rain or showers and continued gusty winds in many places. You can see Storm Barra, a dartboard area of low pressure which deepened rapidly as it made its way across the Atlantic on Monday and the start of Tuesday, now slowing down and gradually filling, so the worst of its impacts will come down in the next 24 hours, but still the potential for some very unsettled weather overnight. Through the evening, 70 to 80 mile per hour wind gusts possible for parts of Wales and to the Bristol Channel as well. Stays windy in the northeast as well, and showers wrapped around that area of low pressure, or longer spells of rain with further hill snow for northern England as well as Scotland. So we start off Wednesday very unsettled with that low still in place. The winds will be coming down through the day, but it's going to take a while, so still the potential for gales for South Wales and southwest England, 65 mile per hour wind gusts. And for northeast Scotland, Northern Ireland, parts of western England and Wales, a continuous feed of showers through the day. The weather stays unsettled in many spots. Some drier and brighter interludes towards the east of England, western Scotland, for example. However, all in all, it's an unsettled day. Expect showers, expect gusty winds, and it will feel cool or cold with all of that weather going on. Into Wednesday evening and overnight, we're going to see further showers coming in from that area of low pressure, especially in the east and northeast, and a few coming through to Western England, Wales and Northern Ireland. A lot of cloud cover, and with that breeze, temperatures generally holding up overnight, but potential for a chilly start for Western Scotland, perhaps 1 or 2 spots further south as well. A bright start in these areas, a better chance of sunshine coming through on Thursday morning, and showers gradually easing through the day in many spots. But further rain arrives in the far west towards the end of Thursday. That makes its way across the country on Friday, followed by showers. More rain to come on Saturday.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Now, 2 members of our GB News family have been caught in a campus row that has chilling repercussions for free speech. My uncancelled regular contributor Rod Liddell and Professor Tim Luckhurst, who's been on the show many times, at the heart of an investigation launched by Durham University after students walked out of a speech by Rod on Friday, ironically, on the subject of tolerance. Professor Luckhurst, who is a principal of the university's South College, branded students pathetic for objecting to the content of Rod's talk at a Christmas formal, as well as historic comments they deemed offensive. Even after caving to an open letter signed by 1,500 students and apologising, Professor Luckhurst's 14-year academic career hangs in the balance, as the Durham Student Union are now calling for his resignation. Just stop for a moment and think about what message this sends to any university academic. What is the lesson here? Don't invite Rod Liddell. Don't invite anyone with views who lefty students are going to disagree with. Don't invite anyone that challenges groupthink on campus. Well, Rod, the man at the heart of the headlines, joins me now. Rod, so much to unpick here, but can you just talk me through first what actually happened on the night?
Yes, I turned up at the university, had a lovely chat with members of the university newspaper, the Palatinate, some talented young journalists there, I think. And then later went into the main hall to supposedly do a speech to 250, 300 people from the university as a guest of Professor Luckhurst. They walked out, a minority, it was a minority of people. A minority of people walked out before I'd started speaking. So they'd clearly gone there simply with the intention of walking out, which seems a a bit of a heavy-handed approach. I would just have not bothered going along if I'd known that I was on and I didn't like me very much. I would have just not bothered going. But they walked out. A few more, a handful more, walked out halfway through. But the vast majority walked out before I'd said a word, which struck me as being bad-mannered. But I also ought to correct you on one thing, Dan. Tim Luckhurst said pathetic. He wasn't calling the students pathetic. He was saying the action was pathetic.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't particularly being rude. It was just a visceral reaction.
It is pathetic.
To see people walking out. It is pathetic. Of course it is.
He stated a fact, and I've now turned on him, of course. But Rod, just before you go on, there's this open letter which has now been signed by 1,500 students and sent to the university's vice-chancellor. They say, and I want you to respond here, because they claim that at the event itself, Rod Liddle proceeded to make numerous transphobic, sexist, racist and classist remarks. His unacceptable comments made numerous students uncomfortable and distressed. Rod, now, I know you're not any of those things, so I can't imagine you did any of the things they're claiming in the letter, but can you just explain what they might be referring to?
No, it's actually actionable, and I may well take legal action against them.
You should.
It's certainly, and I'm a journalist, and we never sue. You know, we shouldn't sue.
Yeah, we learn the hard way.
But when you get people like this, these children, then I think all bets are off, frankly. No, there was nothing transphobic, sexist, or racist, and certainly not racist, and classist. I'm trying to think if I made a joke about the middle class. I may have done. I may have made a joke. I may have been classist in that I had a go at the middle class. But then I've been doing that for the last 40 years. On and off, so I don't think
these are your greatest hits, aren't they, Rod?
Yeah. But I mean, the whole point of the speech was to say, look, here's a few things which I think. So, for example, I believe in the biological definition of what constitutes a woman. I don't think, for example, I think it's very hard to argue that colonialism is the sole cause of Africa's problems. It seems to me almost impossible to argue that. And what I was saying was, well, here's a few of my arguments. I'm often wrong, you know? I get things, and what we should all have, all of us, you know, is doubt. Doubt in our own opinions, doubt in our own beliefs, doubt in the opinions of others, doubt in groupthink opinions. We should have doubt and the ability to listen to other people's points of views. That was the point. And of course, the Durham students, those who left, made the point perfectly by walking out.
Now, look, obviously, Rod, you are in a position where essentially I think you're pretty much uncancelable. But poor Professor Luckhurst is not. You know, he is in a salaried position. The university seemed to have removed him from his duties, even though he offered an apology to the students. And the issue with this is that you're going to have other professors at universities up and down the country thinking, I'm not going to take the risk. So this is really chilling, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, let's start with what Durham University should do, first of all. They've behaved despicably, far worse than the students have behaved. I expected that from the students. I expected it from some of the students. What you don't expect is the kind of doublethink which Durham University has indulged in, firstly by saying that they respect freedom of speech, and then by saying, except when it's something we don't agree with or which the Labour Party on campus doesn't agree with, then they don't agree with it. And secondly, also, then, most importantly of all, you might argue, scapegoating poor Tim Luckhurst, who asked me to come along in good faith, having cleared it with the university authorities, having told them what was happening in advance. They have now decided, because they've got to appease these jabbering infants, they have decided they've got to do something. And so a hugely distinguished, reputable and incredibly competent journalist and professor is made to left hanging out to dry So what they should do now, immediately, is number one, decide whether they believe in freedom of speech or not. Number two, write an apology, a grovelling apology to Professor Luckhurst, reinstate him immediately into all his duties, and call off this fatuous investigation into what he's doing, and accept that he invited me here on good faith. And thirdly, what they should do after that is write me a letter of apology and explain to me that they were wrong to have vilified me in their comments about this whole affair, and that they might be better off in future, that rather than teaching, giving extra courses to their students in how to become prostitutes, a course in good manners might not come amiss. And they can also forward me 150 quid for my travel expenses, because I came there free of charge out of a wish to do the right thing, to give something to public, public service, all that palaver, and because a friend had asked me, so they could apologise and reimburse my travel expenses.
Well,
after that, I'll be happy.
Yeah, I think they should, because the point is a whole load of us are going to be thinking, why would we bother taking the risk to even go to a university campus? I want to show you this footage, Rod, and get you to react, because some of the students actually took on Tim, who was trying to have a rational conversation with them after this went down, and his wife naturally got quite upset.
What are you frightened of, you silly people? Stop talking. You're right, stop. We're talking to him. I did, you are an arse. Why not? It's like say arse, apparently.
You shouldn't be at university because you are not prepared to listen to us.
Rod, I share the frustration of Mrs. Luckhurst, because the point is they didn't want to have a conversation, did they? Tim's there trying to have a reasonable debate with them. And by the way, Tim comes on the show a lot. I don't agree with him on most things, but he is a true free speech champion. But they weren't prepared to even have the discussion.
They're not prepared to discuss anything with anyone. I tried to speak to one of the students afterwards because he shouted abuse at me as I left, which I think is bad-mannered. It's a bit bad-mannered. So I went back and I said very quietly, right, OK, what's disgusting? And I tried to engage him in conversation, and it was really weird because I could see he was a guy, he was East Asian, I think probably Chinese, I'm not sure. But I could see in this guy's face this battle going on between this man is evil and he is evil and he is evil and that's it. And hang on, but he's talking to me like a normal human being. What do I do? What do I do? And there was real panic there. It's very difficult to explain. I didn't get anywhere with him. I talked to him for a few minutes, but he at least held off the insults for a little bit. They are terrified of any views which contradict their own. And it's an awful thing. It's an awful thing if you're at university, because that is surely one of the points of university. When I went to university, I was probably a bit of a Marxist. University, rather wonderfully, kicked me out of that, through reading more and more and more. Through reading more and more and more, I decided that it was wrong. You go there to learn different opinions. You don't go there just to be reinforced in your own opinion.
That's why this is so chilling, Rod. Thank you for coming on and clearing it all up. And of course, you're always welcome here, Rod, and you're back tomorrow night for Uncancelled.
See you tomorrow.
I can't wait for. Thank you, Rod. Obviously, both sides of the argument here. So in a statement which Rod just referred to, Durham University said the university categorically does not agree with the comments reported from a speech given by an external speaker at this occasion, and is concerned at reports that the behaviours exhibited at the occasion fall short of those that we expect. Coming up, will COVID finger pointing tear us apart? Voice of the people, Zuby, fares so. He'll be here and uncancelled soon. But next in Media Buzz, should Brits stop being made to feel guilty for our country's colonial past? The panel will go to battle after the break, plus there'll be more of those front pages too.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Tomorrow's news tonight now in our Media Buzz. And more front pages have just been delivered. You can imagine what is dominating. The Daily Mail caused the controversy over that video of the PM spokesperson joking about an alleged Tier 4 Christmas party, a sick joke. Plus, the paper reveals Prince Charles's friends fear his rift with Harry may be as damaging as his war with Diana. And believe me, that's bad. Over to the Daily Mirror, who report that ex-Education Secretary Gavin Williamson threw a party last Christmas while London was in Tier 2, which banned social mixing between households. The former Cabinet Minister allegedly hosted up to 24 staff in the Department for Education cafe for drinks and canapes on December the 10th. One source said it was just so reckless. The Guardian leads with the news that the PM has been accused of lying after the shocking ITV News video revealed the Number 10 team joking about a party. Johnson and his aides have repeatedly denied that the event broke COVID rules or took place at all. Keir Starmer has said that Johnston has not been truthful and should come clean and apologise. The footage may also fuel calls for police action, with Labour MPs having already reported allegations to the Metropolitan Police. Newsflash. Rab's brain is still missing, say the Daily Star. They report the Deputy Prime Minister didn't understand the email about the Afghanistan situation and needed it simplified, with one whistleblower calling him thicker than custard. That's not very nice. But you know what? This is the front page I'm most concerned about, actually. Really worried about this story. The Daily Telegraph leads on the mooted Christmas work from home order. Plans are reportedly being drawn up after officials working on COVID policy carried out modelling on the economic impact of urging people to stay home. Vaccine passports could also be introduced. What? Why? They don't work. The move has split the cabinet. The freedom fighters have to stand up now. I'm looking at you, Liz Truss. I'm looking at you, Rishi Sunak. There's been enough standing on the sidelines because this fight is real. Let me bring in tonight's superstar panel now. Former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson, and the author and journalist Rebecca Reid. In the last hour, of course, the Metropolitan Police have told GB News they are aware of footage obtained by ITV News related to breaches of the Health Protection Act. So, is the government going to start tackling the woke extremists determined to erase British history? It certainly seems so. The Sun are reporting tonight that Foreign Secretary Liz Truss will be condemning the guilt about our colonial past in a speech to Chatham House tomorrow,
where she will declare, rather than being racked with shame about our history and doubt about our future, it's time for Britain to be proud once again of who we are and what we stand for. And her comments couldn't be more timely, as only yesterday it was reported that Colston School in Bristol will change its name following consultations which concluded that the school's namesake, Edward Colston, would forever be associated with slavery. Just last year, Colston's statue was toppled during a Black Lives Matter protest, but the decision to change it is damn odd. Because wait for it, 81% of the public who took part in a survey said the school should retain the name. So, Dawn Neeson, that's my real issue with this. It's like you've got people desperately trying to erase our history. And this is why it's right that Liz Truss is speaking up against this.
You know what?
Because we don't even want it. So why are they changing names of things that we want to keep?
Evidently, the parents at the school and most of the staff at the school do want it changed. So I don't really have such a big issue with them. If the people at the school, and it's a very privileged school for privileged kids, by the way, I don't have a problem with them changing the name. But you know what, Dan? I'm fed up of apologising. I'm fed up apologising just for existing these days. I'm fed up apologising for being white, for being a woman. Am I still allowed to say that? I'm
No.
not quite sure. No, I'm sorry. I think I've just cancelled myself. But I'm fed up of having to apologise. Why can't we be proud of our country and our past? There's an awful lot of good things this country has done, and we forget about that, and we're all so cowed down by people telling us, you're guilty of this, you're guilty of that. We've done some good things.
And Calvin, a name is a name. It doesn't mean that we're endorsing every single thing that this human being did well over 100 years ago. But it's part of our history, it's part of our legacy. So Liz Truss is right, isn't she?
Of course she is. Edward Colston founded and endowed schools. He set up houses for the poor. He set up hospitals and churches. These are the reasons...
He wasn't all bad, right?
Well, these are the reasons his name was used on this school, not because of his links to the British Empire. But even the British Empire, for goodness sakes, spread churches, schools, railways, the English language across the world. Even that wasn't all bad. If we look at anything through the lens of how negative something was, of course we'll see the bad things, but we have to look at history on balance. And Dawn, you're absolutely right in that we should be proud of British history because we accomplished some great things.
But Rebecca, you think the school needed to change its name for commercial reasons?
100%. It's a fee-paying school. They are businesses. It's a
So they have a right to do that,
absolutely.
you would say?
And also, it is a difficult climate for fee-paying schools. There's a lot of competition, and the cost of private education has risen.
And some
way
middle-class
above
folk don't
inflation.
want to send their kids to Colston School.
Well, if I was picking a school for my child and I had the budget, I want to send them to the school that was going to equip them in the best possible way. And even something as small as that might put me off, because in Bristol there are so many great options for schools. It's a business decision. No point getting overwrought about it.
Well, now I wouldn't
But in
choose to send my
terms
kids
of
there if they've changed their name because they're wet wipes, aren't they?
I mean, up to you. Don't send your kids there.
But I mean, it's as much as a turn-off as it is a turn-on.
I think there are probably more in Bristol, having lived there for some years, there are probably more Waitrose shopping parents who...
But Dan's survey would suggest most people suggest otherwise.
But I think if you look at people who are fee-paying people, there is a
People that
particular
actually
kind of
send their kids to
guilty
this
rich.
school.
Absolutely, people like me.
Now, a festive joke. I need some light. It's been a very serious show. So a festive joke about the rising cost of fuel has been revealed as the winner of an annual competition to create the best Christmas cracker gags. The winner, as voted by the British public, is this. Why are people cutting back on Brussels sprouts this Christmas? The cost of gas is too high. Jokes about COVID vaccines and testing, the Friends reunion, the lack of HGV drivers, and the Netflix series Squid Game also made it into the list compiled by the TV channel Gold. But, panel, you are going to reveal the best political Christmas cracker jokes of the year. Dawn, what's yours?
Right, OK, mine is a proper cracker. See what I did there? Yeah, I'm sorry, OK, the jokes are even worse than the ones in the cracker. OK, ready? Brace yourself. Why did Matt Hancock have to buy his aide really expensive Christmas presents this year?
Go on.
She had him up against the wall.
Literally. Calvin, what's yours?
Sorry.
If I had £1 for every gender, I'd have £2. No, that wasn't mine, actually. Why does Christmas Scrabble take so long with Boris Johnson? He keeps going back on his word.
And Rebecca, yours?
I think this was mean, but why will Keir Starmer be sad on Christmas morning?
Why?
Because he'll still have no presents.
Sorry, that was quite funny.
We loved it. That was the best. That was the best. Rebecca Reid, Calvin Robinson, Dawn Neeson, do stand by, because coming up, are we witnessing the rebirth of Theresa May? She's one of the nominees for tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. The panel will reveal all of the nominations in just a moment. But next, in Uncancelled, why are the left trying to frame COVID infections as a malicious attack? Social media sensation Zuby is back. You've been wanting him and he's here in just 30 seconds. First, though, here's what's coming up in tomorrow's show.
Coming up on Dan Wootton Tonight, is Fergie right to brand herself the most persecuted woman in royal history? Robert Jobson takes a look at the Duchesses, divorcees and other figures broken by the firm in Crown Jewels. How can Brits who went broke in lockdown get back into the black? The real-life Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfont, gives his unfiltered business advice and looks back on his incredible life of wealth and scandal, immortalised by Leonardo DiCaprio. Will targeting middle-class users prove the key to winning the war on drugs? Brendan O'Neill thinks so, he's my outsider. Plus, Rod Liddell returns in Uncancelled, and I'll break down the day's top stories with my superstar panel. The media commentator and Fleet Street legend Neil Wallace, the Daily Mail columnist Amanda Platel, and the political and royal commentator Daisy McAndrew. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
But it's time now for Uncancelled. And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. Have you noticed the creeping trend of left-wingers framing their positive COVID cases or even the threat of getting infected as some kind of malicious personal attack? My guest tonight, social media superstar and voice of the people, Zuby certainly has. And here's a message for all those COVID finger pointers. A clean bill of health is not a right. The risk of being exposed to disease is part of being human, not something to be politicised. And Zuby joins me now in the studio. Zuby, it's great to have you back in the country, even though you've been contributing from America, I know. But this is so fascinating, isn't it? This whole concept of risk. And this idea that as a result of COVID, people seem to think that they should be protected from all infections, from all disease, which means life has to stop if that's how we want to live.
Yeah, it's been weird, Dan. I think a lot of stuff has shifted drastically over the past 2 years.
That's for sure.
And I think that one thing that's really gone out of the window, as well with a lot of other things, is just the concept of risk. Right? Risk is something that exists in absolutely everything we do in life, whether you stay home or you go outside or you get into a car or you board a plane. Whatever you're doing, you're always taking a risk. There's nothing new about pathogens. They're out there. There's nothing new about disease and sickness. This is something that has existed our entire life and for centuries prior to it. It goes beyond the human kingdom across the entire animal and even plant kingdom. And so I think that with all of the measures and restrictions and everything that's been going on, it's been weird how there's now seem to be some people you now hear people saying something like, oh, well, you know, someone doesn't have a right to make me sick. But there's no right not to get sick. That's not even a right that is possible to have. I totally agree, like any sane person, that if someone knows they have an illness or a disease, then you shouldn't go around trying to intentionally transmit something to someone. Of course not. That would be crazy and perhaps even a form of assault, depending on where you are. But life has risk, that's all I'm saying. And I think certainly at this point with this particular disease where we are now almost 2 years into it, everyone who wants to have the vaccine has already had it. Multiple shots in many cases, which is totally fine. Everyone has a different risk analysis and risk tolerance. So people should be totally free to do what they want to do. However, we do have to get on with life. I believe that this virus is simply going to be endemic, just like other coronaviruses, the cold, the flu. It's something that's going to be around. We have to live with it. People have to get on with life. There are other things that matter and things that are very important beyond COVID. And so that's really the point that I was making with
Well, I think you're completely right, but it's very disturbing, isn't it, that risk has almost been politicised now. Because if you say what you've just said, which I think is completely sane and rational, actually there'll be a lot of folk, the virtue signalers, the COVID hysterics who say that it's deeply irresponsible and you're wanting to put other people at risk. That's what they say. I mean, I think that's completely not true, but it's hard to argue with it, isn't it?
Well, people can say it, but it's disingenuous. And it's important to think of how unprecedented that type of thinking is. If someone got a cold or a flu in 2019 or any time prior to that, there would never be this idea that that is because of someone else's reckless behavior or that you should have somehow been protected from that. Literally nobody used to think like that. And so it's a really weird form of thinking, and it's actually very anti-liberty. I'd also say it's certainly antisocial, but it's also a little bit anti-human. I mean, if you want to stay indoors eternally and hide away from everybody and never go anywhere or do anything because you're so afraid of getting ill, then I also support your right to do that. I don't think that's the right way to live, and I don't think you're going to have much fun. And I think you're also taking a huge risk in doing that because you're also not training up your own immune system. But, you know, people should just simply be free to make their own choices. I think if living in a liberal society, as we're supposed to, where people have rights and people have freedoms, then people also need to have the right to be able to assume risk. And there are always going to be people who take on risks that other people don't want to, and that's also their right. And you have, you know, freedom of association. So if you want to stay away from a certain situation, I don't think anyone should be forced into that either.
Zubi, I want to get you to react to the breaking news of the night. So we have video of this footage from the Downing Street spokesperson for Boris Johnson last year. She was doing a mock-up press conference, which she didn't think was being filmed. And she joked about the fact that Number 10 had seemingly had a Christmas party for staff, even though they had cancelled Christmas for the rest of us mere mortals. So have a look at this and I'll get you to react off the bat. Okay.
I've just seen reports on Twitter that there was a Downing Street Christmas party on Friday night. Do you recognise those reports?
I went home. Hold on.
Would the Prime Minister condone having a Christmas party?
What's the answer?
I don't know. It wasn't a party, it was cheese and wine. Just be clear, it's not.
Is cheese and wine all right?
No.
It was a business meeting.
I'm joking.
This is recorded. This fictional party was a business meeting. And it was not socially distanced. One more, and then ask anybody have any questions today?
So Zubi, there they are, laughing in our faces as they had this potentially illegal, it certainly was a party that went against the spirit of their guidelines, when they were telling everyone else, you're not allowed to see your dying relatives, you're not allowed to hug your mum, you're not allowed to see your newborn niece or nephew. And I'm sorry, today I feel so angry about it. How do you feel?
I think, like a lot of people, the problem is the hypocrisy. That's what it is. Honestly, in my personal position, as someone who doesn't think those restrictions should have ever been made in the first place, I don't have a problem with the fact that, I don't know whether or not they actually had this party, but if they did, that in itself, I don't have a problem with. The problem is with the double standard and with the hypocrisy. So,
I mean, weirdly, I actually celebrate people that broke the rules last year. Dawn Neeson said she did earlier. I'm like, great, it's not about that. It's the fact that they were trying to force them on us. But look, Zubia, stand by, because I'm going to bring you into this, but it's time to reveal today's Greatest Britain and Union jackass. My superstar panel now back with me. The aforementioned Dawn Neeson, the Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson, the journalist and author Rebecca Reid, and Zubi is staying with me. But Dawn, who is your Greatest Britain nominee?
My Greatest Britain is someone that I never thought I would say this about, but it is Theresa May, who stood up in the House of Commons this week and said, when will the government accept that learning to live with COVID, which we all have to do, means that we cannot respond to new variants by stopping and starting sectors of our economy.
It was brilliant, actually. Let's have a look. Let's have a look.
The early indications of Omicron are that it is more transmissible, but potentially leads to less serious illness than other variants. I understand that would be the normal progress of a virus. Variants will continue to appear year after year. When is the government going to accept that learning to live with COVID, which we all have to do, means we will almost certainly have an annual vaccine, and that we cannot respond to new variants by stopping and starting sectors of our economy, which leads to businesses going under and jobs being lost?
Calvin Robinson, your Greatest Britain.
Tell you
nomination.
She's a much better backbencher than she was Prime Minister. But mine is the Bishop of Rome, because he's called out the EU. In fact, he called them fascists for wanting to change Christmas from Happy Christmas or Merry Christmas to Happy Holidays in case other people take offence. Now, we'd never say you can't say have a good Eid in case Christians take offence, so we shouldn't do it the other way around. Let's just call Christmas Christmas.
Rebecca Reid, your Greatest Britain nominee.
Mine's a relatively bleak one, but I think it's the jury for the Arthur Labinjo Hughes case, because I think that was a truly unenviable job. But I do think that without a proper jury who play by the rules, you can't have real justice. So I'm very grateful to those people.
Subi, who do you reckon? Who should we choose?
Well, out of those three?
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Theresa May because she backs up what I just said.
Yeah. I'm with you, actually. And I'm totally with Calvin. You know, she wasn't the right Prime Minister for Brexit, but actually she would have been the right Prime Minister to get us through this COVID madness. I just have to say, actually, my greatest person in the world today is my wonderful sister, who is the light of my life. And because of COVID restrictions, there she is, because of COVID restrictions and that COVID dictator, Jacinda Ardern, in New Zealand, I actually haven't seen her now for close to 2 years, and I miss her so much. And there we are, years and years ago. So, Ash, I love you lots, and hopefully I'm going to get to see you next year when that mad woman opens the borders. Union Jackass time now. Dawn Neeson, your nominee.
Oh, this is a shoo-in. I just give the prize to me now. I've won. It's Prince Harry, who thinks that if you're struggling a little bit at work, then it's perfectly OK to walk away. Says a man with 30 million quid in the bank.
Calvin Robinson, your nomination.
Another Christmassy one. This time it's Black Lives Matter, who are promoting a campaign called Black Christmas, where you should only shop at black-owned businesses. It's racial segregation and it's wrong.
Which they announced on Instagram, owned by white people. Marvellous.
Yeah, Zubi, what's your take on that? Having just been over there in the States, seeing all of this going on.
Yeah, it's not helpful. That's really the most simple way I can put it. It's not helpful. It stokes division. Again, it's hypocritical, and it's racist by the proper definition. Racial discrimination, that's not what we want in our society.
Rebecca Reid, your nominee, you're agreeing with the Daily Star front page.
I think, I actually haven't seen it, I'm so sorry, Dawn. But I agree. Mine's Dominic Raab, who has basically decided the best way to...
They said he's missing his brain.
Oh, yes, well, I agree with that, but for different reasons. For me, it's because he has decided the best way to get people off heroin in prison is just to take all the heroin away. No methadone, no help. Because a load of people detoxing in prison isn't going to make life more difficult for the people who run the prisons or fellow inmates or addicts. There was nothing wrong with giving people methadone. It was a sensible way of getting people off drugs. But never mind, let's just see how they fare.
Zubi, what do you reckon? Who's today's Union Jackass?
Oh, wow. So what were the options again?
So we've got Prince Harry,
okay.
We've got Black Lives Matter, and we've got Dominic Raab.
Oh, this is a tricky one. I don't know the full context of Prince Harry's comment, but if it was the way that it was stated there, then I'll go with him on that one.
Yeah.
That's very detached from reality.
He was very best. That's Zubi's choice, but I'm going to have to say I'm with Calvin, actually, today, because I think Black Lives Matter are just sowing division all over the world. And it should just be one of the fundamental principles of society that we back a business not because of who runs it, but because of what service they provide. It makes absolutely no difference to me if what flag someone is waving, whether it's a rainbow flag, what country the owners of a business come from. It's completely irrelevant, and I think this is really divisive language. But Zubi, it has been so lovely to have you on the studio on a brief visit back. Keep doing all of your great work.
Appreciate it.
And thank you too to my superstar panel tonight, Calvin Robinson, Dawn Neeson and Rebecca Reid. I look forward to having you back next week. Thank you so much for your company tonight as well. I'm back tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. Headliners is up next. I'm looking forward to their take on that Allegra Stratton video. Good night.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello again. The worst of Storm Barra's weather is now easing, but the weather stays unsettled during the next 24 hours with further rain or showers and continued gusty winds in many places. You can see Storm Barra, a dartboard area of low pressure which deepened rapidly as it made its way across the Atlantic on Monday and the start of Tuesday, now slowing down and gradually filling, so the worst of its impacts will come down in the next 24 hours, but still the potential for some very unsettled weather overnight. Through the evening, 70 to 80 mile per hour wind gusts possible for parts of Wales and to the Bristol Channel as well. It stays windy in the northeast as well, and showers wrapped around that area of low pressure or longer spells of rain with further hill snow for northern England as well as Scotland. So we start